Sword Art Online performs one of the cardinal sins of amateur writing in the form of telling rather than showing. The writer tries to tell you about important things that we never actually see ourselves. A crowning example is when Asuna tries to tell us about this huge influence Kirito has had on her and, well, here, just read it. What? None of this ever happened. Ever. You're trying to tell us that you developed as a character when you didn't. Again, writing characterization and character development backwards into the story does not work. Do you need me to actually tell you why it's amateur? Fine. Compare how difficult it would be to show ordeals and interactions that would actually spurn major changes in someone's personality. But equally, how much more rewarding it would be for the viewer to see this happening, and how much more likely it is that they'll accept it. Hell, show what her base personality was in the first place so we can see this change when it happened. Then look at how easy it is to just have a character sit there and bullshit in a monologue for a few minutes and just say that they've learned this and that from so-and-so, especially considering how important it would be to actually see this happening. This problem is only compounded by the fact that we never actually see these aspects of her personality that allegedly were changed in the first place, making the fact that she's suddenly claiming they were changed all the more laughably retarded. Asuna can sit there and tell me Kirito is a great person until she's blue in the face, but it will ultimately be meaningless, considering 1, she never saw anything that would actually validate making such a claim, 2, we never saw anything that actually prove it either, and 3, all the bad writing speaks louder than her obnoxious tsundere voice does. Yeah, Kirito does some nice things, I guess when taken at face value, but when you consider the context and circumstances surrounding many of them, they aren't any acts of kindness at all, much less any kind of exceptional kindness. Ultimately, he doesn't perform any action a normal, everyday person wouldn't do. He doesn't do anything exceptional in the kindness department. This fact helps lend to his relatability for average otaku. In fact, most of these attempts to make him look nice end up just making him look like a complete idiot and a disloyal husband. The crowning example of this is when he's supposed to be on this race against the clock to save Asuna, but this random slut's friends are going to be attacked by plot device bad guys. This will result in an exchange of game currency. Ooh, scary big drama, dun dun dun. Video games are serious business. And Kirito decides that this is more important than saving Asuna at the moment, and runs off to help. All this ultimately ends up accomplishing is racking up more harem members. They show up at the end to help Kirito get past the Guardian so he can get to Asuna, but guess what? They were never needed in the first place. Leafa gives Kirito her sword, and then he pulls this Meteor Comet skill out of his ass and clears all the Guardians in his way like they weren't even there, making all the melodrama and action that led up to that point completely and utterly moot. But this isn't the only time the writer's clumsy attempt to make Kirito look like a good person ends up completely contradicting his previous characterization. Remember the duel with Heathcliff/Kayaba? Kirito went on a little tirade where he declared he was going to kill him and got all super angry and shit. But then when that ass pull during the conclusion of ALO happens, he's talking about Kayaba like he's a hero or something. There's also the time on the bridge when Leafa and Kirito are cornered. Kirito gives a retarded, melodramatic speech about his refusal to let party members die, even though Leafa insists that they wouldn't lose much time if they died here, and then he goes nuts. Fucking nuts. Holy shit, dude. It's just a game, brah. Chillax. He's butchering people left and right, and when he's about to kill the last one, Leafa intervenes because she wants to interrogate him for information as to why they were attacked. So when Kirito turns off his hacks, he suddenly acts super friendly towards the guy and offers him money if he'll tell. And when all is said and done, they're acting like best friends. The same exact thing happens 2 episodes later when Kirito beats the guy who is heading the attack against the leaders who are going to sign a treaty between their respective races. Once again, Kirito goes on a berserk rampage and beats the shit out of him. For whatever reason, Sakuya revives him right after he's beaten. Then he's like, "Oh, you're so good at the game that I guess I'll believe what you said about being an ambassador for your race." Which was a blatant lie, by the way. Even though Kirito beating him ended up with Kirito getting a bunch of his money, which he later uses to buy these prostitutes. I mean, donates to a good cause. They even fist bump, once again like they were great friends. He even shows up at the very end of the show, implying that he's now an ally of everyone there. It's like a fucking baby wrote this shit. It's a good thing none of the villains are female, or else they probably would have just fallen in love with Kirito instantly after he beat them, no matter what heinous act they committed beforehand. It's for all of the reasons that I stated that I took to calling Kirito Jesus. He's the Messiah, he can do anything, everyone loves him, he's portrayed as a perfect person, and he even comes back to life after he dies. In reality, he always takes the road of normalcy. Kirito is just like the main player of an RPG, a soulless husk who has no personality of his own. Imagine taking one from an RPG and sticking him into a show, but still having him do exactly what you'd expect him to do. This is because it would be hard for people to insert themselves into the show if he actually showed some kind of individuality, but you still have to make him look awesome. So you have to sacrifice actually making the character deep and well-defined and consistent and believable to make him look as good as he can be. Kirito's emotions are just artificial placeholders to make him a skin that the largest number of people possible can put on. Every time you praise Jesus in some way, you're actually just pretending you're as awesome as he. Every time you wish something else good would happen to him, you're just wishing good things would happen to you. Number 7. I can't put enough quotation marks around the word love, so I won't even try. One of the many aspects where the characters completely fail in the intelligence department is how the show is totally a harem. Girls in SAO are nothing more than trophies for Jesus to claim, and they're so easy to claim. All he has to do is act kinda nice and be super great at the game, and boom! Sluts. It's the dream of every gaming nerd. I mean, shit. Any attempt at romance this show tries to have is straight from a stereotypical, chauvinistic, and unrealistic eroge. You can easily see why harem and visual novel fans will love it at first sight. You know what kind of people I'm talking about. The same people you give a real book to read, and they give up on the 3rd page because it's not full of boobs. It doesn't just have the same 100 words they're used to seeing repeated over and over again. Why, don't lump this show in with X. Haha. Watch me. Anyone who claims it isn't a harem is in a major state of fanboy denial. Get ready to get slapped with some facts. When Kirito saves and subsequently protects Celica, it's only because he's been hired to hunt down the person she's in a guild with who's been murdering people. However, after she learns that the only reason he's been protecting her all this time is because she was bandit bait, she has absolutely no problem with it, and is still in love with him when the series comes to a close. She fell in love with him after 10 fucking minutes, which was only a couple of hours in the show's time, and all he did was pose as her party mate, because a bunch of chimos wanted to party with her or whatever, and promised to help revive her Pokemon. That was apparently enough for her to make a complete sweeping judgment about his personality, calling him a great person. And then with Liz, he breaks her best sword, and exploits her skills to get a better sword from her. For no reason other than to force another harem pairing, she insists on coming along to get the raw materials for it, even though Kirito said he'd do it himself. She is supposedly some kind of axe master, but Kirito tells her to get out of the way when the dragon appears. He's only really protecting himself against the dragon. Liz basically would have just gotten in the way. That's why he tells her to go hide. And later, the show illustrates its overt misogyny again when she comes out of hiding, and immediately gets them fucked over because of it. But as they're falling from the sky, she makes a sudden declaration of love. Wait, what? So let's get this straight. He breaks your shit, treats you like a piece of garbage, and you spend one whole night with him and for whatever reason hold hands, and that's enough to lead you to the conclusion that you love him? Because the warmth of his hand is real! And I'm supposed to feel anything when you're shedding tears because Kirito is taken? This is supposed to be one of the sorry excuses for drama in this show. There were people who were actually distraught over Liz at the end of her one episode. Yes, I feel sorry for this character that has absolutely zero depth, and feel sympathy for the harem member who had absolutely zero interactions with the protagonist to serve as a basis for her pretentiously overplayed feelings for him. Come on, people! You are putty! They held hands once, so she feels deep, unrequited love? Retards. Alicia and Sakuya throw themselves at Jesus just because he fought the one guy and won. Literally, just because he's good at the game. And in this game, the character avatars aren't what the people actually look like in real life. Makes you wonder what they actually look like. For all you know, they could be fat-ass otaku basement dwellers. Sugu is the main love rival of Asuna and Aolo, and Kirito's cousin and adopted sister. And she is in love with him because this is what all sisters are obligated to do in harem shows. That's seriously all there is to it. That's all she exists for, and that's all she does. She doesn't give any reasons for it, though the show repeatedly slaps you in the face trying to show you how distraught these deep feelings make her feel. The show goes to great lengths to emphasize how in love she is with her brother, cousin, whatever, still incest, but never once tries to reveal why she's so obsessed with him. That's all there is to her character. She loves her brother. There are a few reasons why she's introduced, none of them being good. 1. To create forced melodrama with the resulting stereotypical love triangle. 2. Because there wasn't a harem cow introduced yet that had retardedly oversized boobs, and you need to cater to that fetish. And 3. Emoto incest fetish fuel. Oh, and they did the typical incest cop-out by saying that they were just cousins and not siblings, though it's still incest. Aren't we just so clever? The characters are made to be as dumb as possible to shoehorn in horribly forced melodrama, and Sugu is one of the shining examples of this. It turns out that she also got into playing MMOs, despite the fact that her own brother and thousands of others were either killed or in a coma because of them, and yet she acts as if it were never much of an issue, and it was just curious to see what Kirito found so special about them. Check this out. As soon as Kirito enters the game, and is magically teleported away from the world tree by some unknown bullshit, the very first person he meets by complete chance and immediately runs to save is her. Try to calculate those odds. She doesn't even raise an eyebrow to the fact that a completely new player effortlessly defeated 4 other players that she was already pretty sure were going to defeat her. But the best part is that she falls in love with Kirito in the game, when she didn't know it was him all along. She didn't even know who the guy was, or what he looked like in real life. All she knew was that he was nice. Yes, nerds, you too can have hot girls fall in love with you in video games just by being a nice guy. The amount of retardation that has to occur to force this to happen cannot be measured by any scientific process mankind has been able to uncover. We find out that Sugu knew all this time that Asuna used her real name in the game, but she didn't know that Kirito used the name Kirito in the game, when he is the person who's the savior of the fucking game. In addition to this, they have the same voices, and his avatar looks essentially identical to what it looks like in real life, and then there's some horribly forced and cringe-worthy dialogue after she finds out that Kirito is Kirito, where we find out that Kirito previously avoided her because they weren't really siblings? And she thought that the fact that he was being nice to her meant that he was giving her a chance now? How the fuck am I supposed to shed a tear at this? Again, the melodrama in this show, man. By the way, do you want to know why Kirito's character in the game looks almost identical to what he actually looks like? And do you want to know the purpose for having Sugu look different and have a different name in game? It's so that the mindless masses don't have any risk of losing absolute familiarity with the generic fucker. And Sugu/Leafa look different so that it feels all the better when Sugu throws herself at Kirito in both real life and in the game, and she looks like a completely different person. Don't lie. You know it's true. And then, there's a big, fat, unarguable harem ending. Previously, he basically told Sugu that she still had a chance, and even flirted with her on various instances. That's exactly what some of the dialogue implies. Liz and Celica state that they're only giving Kirito and Asuna 1 month alone together before they start throwing themselves at him like the whores they are. I wanted to grab a plastic bag and puke when Jesus danced a romantic dance with his Emoto, and his bitch and Loli approved of it. So much for that super deep relationship between Kirito and Asuna you tried to force down our throats, eh? What's the point in questioning the character interactions if it's a harem? Because the show pretends that it isn't. It pretends it actually has some sort of depth or something going on. It takes itself so seriously it's ridiculous, and for some reason, there are many who don't actually see how harem-y it is. It plays their relationships as though they're actually a source of legitimate drama, and presents them extremely seriously, when in reality, they're just as retarded and unbelievable as a normal harem. Normal harems don't take themselves nearly as seriously because they know their place. Continued in part 5?